Hey, folks, welcome back to Coco Rare Coins and Currency. This might have happened to you, and if not, definitely somebody you know. Your granddad, grandma, mom, dad pass away. You're going through their belongings, go through the sock drawer, and you'll find a jar full of coins or a Ziploc bag full of coins. What are they? Are they valuable? Why did they set them aside? Well, the topic of this video is why did they set them aside? I have an idea. Odds are that person was not a coin collector. Odds are those coins are not incredibly value. They might be worth some value, but I wouldn't plan to retire on it. But here's what I suspect happened. Back from about 1920 to 1960, U.S. coinage underwent a lot of change, stuff that we generally don't see today. So here's what I mean by that. The Buffalo nickel, here's an example. The Buffalo nickel was minted from 1913 until 1938. Okay, in 1938, they stopped production of the Buffalo nickel, and they went over to what you and I now know as the Jefferson nickel, which I'm sure you're very familiar with this coin. All right, so keep in mind that the Buffalo nickel, was minted for 30 years. Okay, when it went out of production in 1938, this does not mean that they simply vanished from pocket change circulation magically in 1939. That didn't happen. I'm pretty certain that if you go to Walmart today and you pay with a $20 bill and you get a bunch of change back and you go through that change, probably what you're going to find is a bunch of coins that are 10, 15, 20 years old. It's very common. So because the Buffalo nickel was minted up until the year 1938, I'm pretty certain that these things were fairly common in normal pocket change circulation, probably until the early to mid 1950s. And so that's the topic of the video. Your dad, granddad, grandmother, 1954, went to the store, bought something, got some change back, and her change was a Buffalo nickel. Now, she knew what that Buffalo nickel was because she remembers when this was what a nickel looked like. But when she got that nickel back, she said, wow, Buffalo nickel. I haven't seen one of these in a couple of years. You don't see them in change very much anymore. Let me set this aside. Okay, so the history of U.S. coinage is full of examples like that. So the Mercury dime, here's an example. The Mercury dime was minted from 1916 until 1945. And then, of course, we know that FDR died in 1945. And so to honor him, they went over to what we now know as the Roosevelt dime, common pocket change today. This happened in 1945. I would suspect that Mercury dimes were still present, in general pocket change, probably up until the late 1950s. And when somebody saw this in their change in the late 50s, they grabbed it and set it aside. This is not the only example. The Standing Liberty Quarter. These were minted from 1916 until the year 1930. Okay, so about a 14-year production run on the Standing Liberty Quarter. In 1932, the mint went over to what we now know as the Washington Quarter, which you're all familiar with. Okay, Washington Quarter came out in 1932, but I'd be willing to bet that you could still find Standing Liberty Quarters in general pocket change circulation probably until the mid 1940s. So when somebody saw these in the mid 1940s, wow, I haven't seen one of those in a while. Let me set it aside. The examples continue, folks. The Franklin Half Dollar. Franklin Half Dollar was minted from 1948 until 1963. Now, half dollars are never huge circulators, even back in the day, but people generally knew what they were. You'd occasionally get them. So the Franklin half, 1948 to 1963. Well, of course, we know that in 1963, our beloved President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And so the following year, they went ahead and switched the half dollar over to what we now know as the Kennedy Half Dollar. So this became the half dollar coin in 1964. However, I'd be willing to bet you could still find Franklin halves in circulation probably until the mid to late 70s. Okay, so again, when somebody came across one of these Franklins, wow, haven't seen one of those in a while, let's set it aside. So that is how your parents, grandparents got these little coin collections with, primarily stuff from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. We appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video. Thanks. Bye-bye.